Hello all, I was curious, how much damage does each mystic skill do exactly? Which is the best for damage per vitality spent? Are some vastly better than others? What are the actual numbers? These are the questions I set out to uncover for you in this video. I tested each mystic skill at tier 2 rank 9, which is the max we can get at this time. The best way I have found to test things is to go into the level 16 sword trial for the Void King. Here it tracks the damage for you, so what I did was go in, use the mystic skill, and then record the damage. I repeated this 10 times for each skill. I then took the average damage and divided by the vitality cost. This gives us the damage per vitality number I was after. I tested 14 different skills or combination of skills. The weakest, coming in at 118 damage per vitality, was Lion's Roar. While this skill does have some utility for PvP, I would not suggest using it for PvE at all. Note that there is a synergy with Leaping Toad, which I'll cover later. At 13th, with 133 damage per vitality, was Guardian Palm. I tested the stronger Light Lamp variation, which is triggered by being over 3 meters in the air. At 12th, with 147 damage per vitality, was Drunken Poet. Note that this has synergy with Dragon's Breath, which I will cover later. At 11th, with 167 damage per vitality, was Flaming Meteor, which I highly suggest never using. At 10th, we have the synergy between Dragon's Breath and Drunken Poet. While the Ignition Fire dot from Dragon's Breath is active, Drunken Poet does an additional damage per hit. However, this was still only enough for 183 damage per vitality. At 9th, with 184 damage per vitality, we have Talon Strike. While good at breaking guard in PvP, it does not have much value here in PvE damage. At 8th, with 188 damage per vitality, is Wolflike Frenzy. Note this does have a large damage boost against cavalry with unstable poise. That was not tested here. At 7th is Free Morph, with 189 damage per vitality. Another skill I don't see much use for in PvE. At 6th, we are up to 218 damage per vitality with Leaping Toad. However, a major con of this skill is that it takes a long time to execute. At 5th, with 220 damage per vitality, is the synergy of Leaping Toad and Lion's Roar. When the target has Toad Venom, then Lion's Roar does extra damage. However, the damage is still not the best, and it takes a long time to execute, so I don't suggest it. And now we are starting to get to the skills I'll actually plan to use in PvE. At 4th, with 221 damage per vitality, we have Yaksha Rush. It is very quick, and appears to be the best option when you have excess vitality to burn. At 2nd and 3rd, we have Dragon's Breath, with or without the animation cancel. The damage I recorded was 276 with animation cancel and 289 without. Since the damage is close, I would always animation cancel immediately after the fire is applied, as you will do more damage with the time save. I would typically animation cancel with parry, but if you have excess vitality, use Yaksha Rush instead. You'll want to use Dragon's Breath about every 8 seconds to keep the Ignition Fire dot up at all times. And if you're confused why mine looks different, it's because I have the skill effect change from the cast shop. At first and by far the best damage dealing mystic skill is Soaring Spin, with a whopping 442 damage per vitality. This is the skill to prioritize whenever it is off cooldown, but be sure the boss is not moving much when you use it, as it's very easy to miss the second hit. Here are all the numbers, and I'll have a link to this Google Sheet in the description. Note that the damage per vitality will go up as we get more gear and higher tiers of these skills, but I expect the relative damage to remain similar. In summary, my plan is to prioritize Soaring Spin whenever it is off cooldown, then Dragon's Breath with animation cancel whenever the Ignition Fire dot is about to expire, which is about every 8 seconds. Then, if I have excess vitality, I will animation cancel Dragon's Breath with Yaksha Rush. If you would like to support me and future content, consider subscribing. Also, my guild initial is currently open for any active players. Thanks for watching!